Okay, so let's just start in ward off, just where we're used to. Yeah, so the difficulty really with practice is, trying to make sure that we don't practice our bad habits. Because John always used to say, the problem with practice is that you just practice yourself and you're wanting to practice something that's better than you. And so every time we come back to the practice, it's like we just have to look at the principles anew as though for the first time, so that we have a chance of getting it a little bit better. So here in the posture, so the important thing really is just getting the bum in. So that's the way we're interpreting it that now is not just, you're not just pulling your tail under or just getting this in. We're getting the spine to feel as though it's reaching down into the feet. So the spine is blending into the legs. The leg just becomes a pure extension of the spine. So the way I think of it now is like imagine someone's handing around the chocolates, yeah? And so the box comes to you and, you sort of reach out and you take one, yeah? And so your mind is just naturally in the chocolate, if you like, even before your hand gets there, you're eyeing them up. You're looking at the lid to see which flavor is which, and then you spy it, and then, your hand goes. So your mind is already there, and your hand moves to reach it, and then you take it, and it comes into your mouth, yeah? So it's an experience of spirit and of very active mind and of delight, yeah? So what we would like is for that same experience to enter the feet. So my foot goes down and touches the ground as though it's picking a chocolate up from the ground, yeah? So it's just a different mind, because our mind is very much thinking of the legs as just these things underneath me that hold me up or which move me around. I want to feel them as really sensitive tools that are picking up really delicate information from the ground. So I have to be really careful with them. And I have to make sure that I'm not just pushing away from the ground, I'm actually pulling myself down to it. So that's the most important thing, really. So that's bum in, So a slightly different interpretation of it. And then if you get that right, then everything else just sort of comes from it, really. So now just turning. But again, just trying to turn more from these muscles in the lower back than from the hips. So we're not just gliding around on the hips, because there's something a little bit, there's not enough physical mind, if you like. We're trying to make this as physical as possible, as difficult as possible, not as easy as possible. Yeah, so to start with, when we do Tai Chi and okay, just relax, just turn the waist gently, yeah. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to start with, so that people can just relax into it, get out of their usual tension. Then once you've got to that relaxed state, you then have to find a way of relaxing into hard work, of just really feeling the physicality of it. And just really enjoying it, enjoying the difficulty, enjoying that physical component of the body working well with energy and with intent. So the same way, like if you're a physical laborer, you'd go to work, think, God, not this again. But once you got into it, it's actually quite, just using your body well is really enjoyable. And you could tell, if you're not enjoying it, then you're just, the body, you'd be hurting the body by by using it. So somehow that enjoyment, that brightness in the spirit just sort of makes everything just swell. It brings a little bit of air into the system, a little bit of buoyancy. And just sink. So if you were in water and you were doing this, the strong movement in the waist would tend to pull your feet off the bottom of the pool. So you'd really have to sink. I'd really have to sink into this leg in order to pull round. Yeah. Same way if you're going to push your car, you'd sink into your legs before you heaved out of them. So it's the same here. Like each action, each turn of the waist requires a sinking into the leg. And so that we want to get that into the mind rather than simply into the body. So my mind sinks into the leg. So it's this tail here that gets into the foot. So what we'd like to feel is the switch. Yeah. So let's just bring it back to here again. Yeah. So our normal lives, yeah. So our normal domestic, we're all domesticated. We're all basically, I really think the Matrix is true in a way, the movie. We're all being milked, yeah, by something, by some evil, yeah. So we're all domesticated farm animals, basically. So what that has done is depress us. So everyone is depressed. It's your ticket for membership of society. You know? So what depression really means is that there's a circuit going like this. So this sense that there's a sinking down the front and a rising up the back. So your heart is dropping all the time and you're coming out of your root. Yeah. So we're floating, but we're also sinking. And so the part of us that should be rising, the heart should be lifting to God all the time. The heart is in constant prayer. That should be coming up, and our body should actually be going down. Yeah. So really, it should be this circuit. Yeah. This is the so down the back. This sense that your spine is sinking down into your legs, and that something is coming up here and just lifting up to the heavens. Yeah. So let's start. So what we want to feel is that when we work properly, physically, and well, it institutes that circuit. We get out of the depressive circuit and into the prayer circuit, yeah, the rooting circuit. So this, my friend that's the psychiatrist, when he gets his really chronically depressed patients to come round and chop his wood for them. And that's basically what happens. They just get into the physical body. So they reverse the circuit and then they just feel really good. Yeah. But it's all he knows, you see, is all he knows is that when they chop wood, they don't feel so depressed. He hasn't worked it out that it's to do with these circuits. Yeah. And you can tell these people, you can tell these depressives, you know, and show them, illustrate, you know, just, you know, when you concentrate on this circuit, when you do a few exercises, they just feel better, their depression just falls. But they won't practice it because they're actually really cozy in their depression. Yeah. They get attached to it. So when I sink into the leg, something erupts out of my heart and leaps upwards. So the heart is light and the body is heavy. If you're depressed, it's the other way around. Okay, let's just slip into this one. So here, just really feel the revolving. Let the eyes go. Don't let the eyes attach to anything outside. You're just scanning. The eyes are just scanning its visual field. Yeah, and just try and pay the mind the same attention that you would if you were just sitting and meditating. And feel what the turning does. It's like your leg is like a corkscrew. So as you turn, you twist into the ground, but also it's going the other way with the heart. So something is rising here. So the turning actually is producing the up and the down as well as the revolution. So as I turn here, I'm reaching down my leg from my sacrum here. And at the same time, this is just lifting. And just try and think of that tentacle that's coming out of the sacrum, like the arm that's picking up the chocolate. Something here really reaches down for that foot. So what is happening beneath the Ming Men just mirrors what's happening above it, or vice versa, really. So we're attending to what's beneath this area, and that's producing an image here. And then this image, in a sense, is purer, because it's like a reflection. You know, it has less sort of that sort of coarse physicality, because it's being generated from somewhere else, and it's just reflecting about this plane. So the important thing is this sense of the spine reaching down. That's just your mind just getting out of our usual way of feeling the legs and just feeling them as real sensitive tentacles. Okay, so let's just bring it back to riding horse a sec. And again, just here, ooh. And now let's just bounce. So again, just trying to get everything really sort of loose. So here we're sort of concentrating really on loosening the hips. Just feeling that these are very loose and the sacroiliacs are loose, so that the sacrum can just hang pendulously, like the plum on the end of the plumb line. Yeah, so we just want to see how our normal lordosis in the lower back, how that shapes the mind. So when that minimizes, when the lordosis goes, because I've relaxed that whole area and I've relaxed my legs, how does that affect my mind? So for me, it just sort of, it allows humor in. So the one thing the ego hates is being laughed at. And it certainly can't laugh at itself. Yeah. And so, you know, we just want that lightness, that gaiety. It's a beautiful word, gaiety. That just come in and just loosen everything up and just let everything play the way it wants to. It's like, you know, when the adult leaves the room, the children will get into mischief. They'll play and the adult's presence inhibits the children. It cramps their style. Yeah, it's the same with the ego. When we have this authority that we are imposing upon the world, it crushes the world. This is what people don't realize. You know, when they're letting their mind wander, they're not just hurting themselves, they're hurting their environment as well. And then just alternating, so just letting the arms alternate and just feeling how it's trying to bring a turn in, a twist, and it's pulling you from leg to leg a little bit. You're trying to just remain bouncy in the middle. But now there's another force there. So all the time you're just watching, but you're watching with a mind full of humor, a mind that wants to be taken by surprise. Not a critical mind. It's like the opposite of a critical mind, really. Yeah, and just always just keeping your eye on it. Yeah. Because what happens, yeah, so you manage to just be humorful about it and it all starts working nicely. But then what happens is you get into it and then it just becomes an indulgence, yeah. So it's a really delicate business, yeah. Ego will always slip in if it can. And it generally does so unawares, yeah. And it's only because you've sort of, your concentration has gone a bit. When you get into it, it's like you just start enjoying it in the wrong way, really. And then just let's slip into this one. So again, the important thing here is that when you lean forward, you don't stick the bum out behind you. You don't let the legs straighten into it. You still want that feeling that your lower back is reaching down your legs. It's just really curved. So this, so here the Min Meng is really pushing back. I mean, all of these exercises can be done in hundreds of ways, as long as you know what you're doing. So a mind light enough to allow something to come out of the occasion that you hadn't realized was there. So it's discovery, really. And then let's just turn the other way. So when you're coming up, just try not to come out the leg. Try not to let the leg push the ground too much. So at that point of coming up, it's your heart that's lifting, really. And so that requires you to really be sinking into the leg, down the back of the leg. So always trying to maintain equilibrium. So there's something that's not moving. The balance is constant throughout. So as one part changes, the other part has to mirror that change. And then just reducing the circles, just to bring it back. Again, just relaxed. Right. Okay, now let's just try going backwards and forwards. Yeah, so this one's just like full and empty. So we work on full and empty, of course, when we move side to side. It's just somehow it's easier to feel on this one. And just feeling how it's the full leg that's passive and the empty leg that's active. And the leg that is active, it's the toes that are active, the front of the foot. And when the leg is passive, it's the heel. Yeah, so we're just switching. So now I'm in the heel and now I'm in these toes, and then these toes pull, and then slowly I go into the heel, and that activates these toes. So again, just like the yin-yang symbol. So as one is becoming more full, the other one is equally becoming more empty. There's always a balance. So it's like an equilibrium that is always moving. It stays the same, but it's always moving. So feeling the foot pulling me back into it, feeling the foot pulling me forwards. So it's the hand that's yielding, it's the leg that's yielding that's important, not the other one. So as I pull with these toes, I'm pulling myself forwards, but more importantly, I'm pulling this tail down into the foot. So this action of pulling into the foot is helping just reduce the lordosis and extend the leg, because the leg tends to get compressed and pushed into itself, not the leg, the lower back. So here I'm pulling my spine down into the foot. Yeah, so I'm getting my feeling into the foot, the same way, your feeling is already in the hand, it's already in the chocolate when you're reaching for it. So I'm pulling. So it's just something has to happen in the mind. This is what people find impossible. It's not just a physical thing. If it just remains physical, then you're just repeating bad habits, because the mind will always impose its own image of that physicality, of that exercise. It has an idea of what that exercise is. So we're just trying to use our attention, our listening, our spirit, to adjust the physical postures so that they take us forwards rather than make us stay the same. So pulling, pulling. And it's just got a very yielding quality, just this feeling that you're just accepting something. You're not resisting, you're just rounding out and just allowing the connection to happen. You're connecting. You're connecting with the other person, but you're also connecting to the ground. It's like an emotional connection. You've got a real feeling for that little piece of earth. So most people just find it impossible to work like this, because it just requires real attention, real listening. So it requires some sort of quietness in your mind so that you can give something that's not you special attention. And people don't like it. They want all that special attention to come to them. So this is why, when I give private lessons now, what the person is always trying to do is turn it into a treatment, a special treatment for them, a special treat. This is my treat. It's all about me. So if I do some sort of technique on them, they'll be sort of really enjoying it. And I'll say, okay, you try it on me now. And it's like, to them, it's really distasteful that they're no longer the center of attention. I'm pulling. So each time you pull, you're pulling yourself out of the image that you have in your mind of what it means to move. You're moving by melting this interface, by melting down into the leg and into the ground. So our normal image is of pushing away, using force to push us away from a hard surface. So here I'm trying to melt into my own body, but also melt into the ground. So it's no longer a hard surface, really. It's a living thing that I'm pulling myself towards. I want complete union. And when you really get it right, it will appear that your image becomes blurred. I love that phrase, the cloud of unknowing. Yeah, so it's like everything just becomes really sort of cloudy, misty. Anything that is distinct and clear sort of just disappears in a cloud. It's the same with the eyes. You know, you can just, well, they talk about hooding the eyes in Tai Chi. So if you just relax the eyes and almost let them close, then it's like everything blurs. So this is what we want. You're no longer using the eyes to see things. You're basically using the eyes to get into energy and spirit, which is their primary function, really, I think. Yeah. So when the eyes shine, there's spirit around. Yeah. So just letting the eyelids just droop a little and just letting everything just go out of focus. And again, just the two sides of the sacrum are just reaching down to the foot all the time. Okay, now let's just try the stepping, yeah? So it's just the same as the moving backwards and forwards, really, but now it's clear that this is really the active leg because it comes off the ground and steps. So just getting the toes on the ground and pulling yourself into it. So don't put that weight in the foot too soon. I pull myself tentatively and just feel as the weight shifts into the heel. And then I bounce out of that. So I just want to feel the mind shifting from active to passive. How is that? Yeah. So here my mind is really, it's really listening. And then as I settle into it, something in me sort of relaxes. That relaxes that attention, but it appears in the other foot. It's like a will-o'-the-wisp. It's here, but then it's here. And then just get the arms going. So what you can feel on this one is the importance of the little toe and the little finger. So as you step, there's a sense that as your big toe touches the ground, your little toe is still reaching out. So it's the curl of the little toe that starts you pulling forwards. The same as it's the curl of the little finger. It's the little finger here that actually starts the yield. Yeah, so the little toes, little fingers are just really important. So it's like the details. God is in the details. You know, the spirit is in the details, is in the little things. Like Musashi said, mastery is in the little things. Ooh. Yes, so it's those vestigial parts of the body, the little parts, the little finger, little toes, the tailbone. They're where they really need to, is in your mind, you've got to let them extend. Ooh. And then they will naturally just move you. Or they'll naturally start the action which moves you. And of course, when we wear shoes, most shoes crunch the toes together. And so they really inhibit the use of the little toe. So most people's feet are just clumps, really, just lumps. And now let's just try the other foot. So alert and subtle. It's quite an interesting choice of words. It's from that article, that Tai Chi manual. So alert just really means that, you're really listening, you're ready. You're ready for the event, for the unknown. And subtle just means, you're not there, you haven't made up your mind already. You're allowing things to come in that, that are just barely perceptible. They're the interesting things. Ooh. Yeah, so imagine, you're drowning, you're in the water, you're drowning. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, but it's pretty terrifying. And then someone reaches out, the hand of rescue. Yeah. So just the sheer intensity of your reach for that hand, and then just allowing them to haul you out of the water. So that's the feeling in the foot, like you've just found land and you're just pulling yourself onto it or into it. So it's got that almost like a sort of a sense of real, it's not so much panic as just spirit. It's like, ooh, just pulling myself down into it. Yeah, so we have to be able to work with spirit. And this is what's difficult because it just takes a lot of energy. A lot of people just don't have that. It's like the life they live just drains them of spirit. So it's all they can do really is just be on automatic pilot all the time. Way. Yeah, so as you sink into the leg and settle into it, you don't want that to make your bum stick out. You don't want it to produce the lordosis. So it's not this that's happening. It's this. Your spine is reaching down into the foot all the time, which allows the lower back to remain, if anything, curved the other way, with the min meng pushing back. It's really difficult. I mean, it seems impossible when you get into it, but it's not impossible. It just requires persistence. Yes, all of these sort of principles, you just have to allow yourself to, you have to allow your understanding of them to develop. So you're not always looking at them from the same angle. It's like a sculpture, you move around a sculpture to see it from lots of different angles. Yeah. So it's the same with the principles. And if you just work and are just, just sort of relatively relaxed about how you work, then that'll just happen naturally. There'll come a point where you're just bored or tired, excessively tired from just approaching something from the same angle all the time. But you know that you have to practice. You can't lay off the practice, but you don't want it to get you down. So naturally you just try it from a different angle. Yeah. You just loosen up and then it piques your interest again. Okay, and now let's just try just the breathing a little bit, but it's all been this really. But all the time just coming back to the same way we come back to riding horse to make sure that bum is in and the spine is melting down into the legs, coming back to the breathing as well. So your attention is with the breathing body, not with the thinking mind. And just realizing that, it's up to you where you put your attention. If you suddenly realize you're thinking to yourself, it's because that's where your attention has gone. You're always thinking to yourself. We're always thinking to ourselves. So the breathing body, and like the core of the body is the spine, really. So just feel, so the body is the spine is the body. So just feeling the breath in the spine. So all the time, the exercise is threatening to possess you, but if you let it, it'll tend to become self-indulgent. The ego will find its way back in. And so it's threatening to possess you, but you're also remaining in control of a part of you that it's very important to be in control of. So you're not, it's like your ruthlessness. So you're not allowing yourself to get carried away, but also you're not allowing the ego to come in and make everything the way it wants. So there's an element of cloudiness. There's an element that's really sort of unknown, that's developing. So the ego is the great control freak. It will try and control everything. And so a consequence of that is that basically it kills everything. So society is just full of people that are in control of their lives, but there's no real sort of life in their lives anymore. And there's like the only, that sort of life force in them that should really be expressing in every action, every joyful action. Just, it just becomes a sickness, So it just becomes a cancer or an autoimmune disease. It's the body just saying, I've had enough, I'm going to kill myself. I can't stand this deathliness anymore. And just having the patience just to carry on for a while. Things like Nietzsche talking about meditation as being like a cure for dyspepsia, for like bad digestion. And it's just such a beautiful insight, because in a way, it's all about digestion, not just your gut digesting your food, but your mind, your mind digesting what's happened, like dreams, And this is quite interesting, when you Now, I've got a student and she's just very, very angry. And it's quite difficult being with her because, you know, we can be working on something like this and all of a sudden she will just stop and start ranting about normally her son or her I mean, how can anyone object to their grandchildren? I mean, just, it's unbelievable, really. But she can't help it, yeah? And what's interesting is that she has real problems with her physical digestion. So she's always bloated and she's always farting. So her diet, her physical diet and her inability to physically digest the food properly and bring some internal comfort is just the same thing as just her mind, yeah? She's always getting these resentments to resurface so she can have a good rant. She's got so used to being angry that's when she's relaxed, she feels as though she's weakening, like she's dying, you know, because the anger's being let go of. This is the problem. Our tension, we take our tension to be our strength. And we get terrified when we feel ourselves letting go of it. So this is why it takes so long. Eventually there comes a point where you just realize, shit, if I let go of this, I don't just dissolve. I don't fall down and die. Maybe I'll feel weaker, but that's just temporary. Yeah, so when you let go of the physical tension, but you still have the wandering mind, then your energy will disappear or dissipate and you will feel weaker. So to physically relax at a less than superficial level, you have to also relax the mind. That just means just seeing, you know, John always used to say, it's all fear. The ego is just built of fear and on fear. So you just need to come to that insight yourself, just see it. Yeah, so you're working away, relaxing, and suddenly you just feel like you're that little child that's terrified that all of the mother's love will go to the newborn and not to you. Yeah. So just very, very simple things. And so you just talk to that child, yeah. You just give it words of comfort. Yeah, so whilst we're holding on to that pain, we're basically infantile. So it's time to grow up, as John used to say. And he used to have like an interesting saying. So, you know, especially nowadays, you often get people that look a lot younger than they are, and they're normally very proud of it. Yeah. I saw a clip on YouTube of Cristiano Ronaldo, just boasting about, even though he's 34, he only looks 28. I think, Jesus, you certainly look your age now. And so what John used to say is basically they've gone through life undigested. So again, digestion. You have to let life digest you, because life is the great teacher, but you know, we've pushed life out. We've created an environment that is so artificial. And we've crushed spirit so much that life can't create the events that you need for your spirit to progress. Okay, so let's just bring it back. Riding horse, again, just feeling the legs reaching down, the spine reaching down the legs. You know, so it's like this side of my sacrum is just snogging that bit of ground underneath my foot. Yeah, it's really sticking its tongue in. So here, you know, there's a real sexuality almost to the connections that you're making to the physical world. You touch something and you're fucking it. Something in you has come out and penetrated. Yeah. So this is the feeling. It's not these sort of touching things with like kid gloves. Yeah. It's really, you're really getting in. Now let's just try the turn. So try not to turn the hips too much, just using those muscles in the lower back, just a little bit of this. And you can do this sitting down. So it's a good idea when you finish meditating to just do some movement. And this is great. Because ideally, when we are meditating, we would like to be meditating whilst we're in this libidinous body, not when we're meditating in this sort of neutral, flat, dead body. So it's not simply a mental thing, meditation. It's a real physicality. You're with the body breathing, the body fucking, not the mind thinking. So you're either fucking something or killing something. It doesn't really matter which. Whatever takes your fancy. So here. So if you practice it, you'll get better at it. If you practice it, it will change. So this is what you know, people always say to me, oh yeah, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing it right. So it doesn't matter. It's just you do it and it will adjust itself. All of these exercises, Tai Chi is self-regulating. If you practice it, it will become perfect. Practice makes perfect. That's the only lesson you need to learn in life. Because from that, all the others will come. For me, this was the only value of university, really. That I just learned beyond a shadow of a doubt that doesn't matter what it is, if you work at something, it becomes interesting. So practice generates spirit, it generates interest, but only if you let it. So it's quite easy to practice and just be resentful and reluctant. And then, of course, you'll just be making yourself sick. So the mind is in those two spinal erectors. So there's a real visceral muscular vitality about the correct use of the mind. It's not just abstract. So these places in the body, they're not just abstract places. There's power. So okay, so let's just bring it back. Again, just feeling. So it's very much these two thick muscles here that are reaching down the legs. And then they also reach up into the shoulders, down the arms. So just being aware of that muscular body. That muscular body is always moving. It's always rippling. There's ripples that pass through the muscles. Whereas like the skeletal body is just very still in the middle of that. Okay, so let's just bring it up. Okay, great.